Clint Bonnell, a decorated Green Beret and physician assistant student, was found dead under shocking circumstances out in North Carolina. Circumstances that prosecutors allege involve his wife, Shana Cloud, amid divorce plans and a possible affair. And now, months later, the official autopsy report has been released, and this is revealing deeply disturbing details. We are going to break it all down with a coroner and nationally recognized forensic expert. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. A disturbing 911 phone call came in on February 25th, 2025 from a man who owned property off Gainey Road in Cumberland County, North Carolina. He thought he was just checking on land that he rarely visited. Instead, he stumbled onto something that was absolutely horrifying: a mutilated human body drifting in a pond.
Cumberland County Emergency Services, is this an emergency?
Yes and no. It's got a pond on it, and I stopped by to check on the property in the house I got here, because I don't live in it. And it looks like there might be a part of a body floating out in the water. And it looks like it's that's what it is. I'm not sure, but like it's been there a while. There's no legs or arms or nothing on it.
And that would turn out to be the remains of Clint Bonnell, a decorated Green Beret veteran, physician assistant student, a family man who disappeared weeks earlier. And what unfolded from there was a murder case that prosecutors allege is filled with deception, marital turmoil, and forensic revelation. And when we last brought you this case here on Sidebar, it was just after authorities had made a shocking arrest, charging none other than Clint's wife, Shana Cloud, with his murder. But now, the newly released autopsy results, they are shedding disturbing new light on exactly what happened to him, according to officials. And we are going to get into those very disgusting details inside that report. But first, if you haven't been following this case, here's how we got here. So the case begins on January 28th, 2025, because that is when Clint, who was studying to become a physician assistant, failed to show up for class at Methodist University. And a program director grew very, very worried because this was completely out of character for Clint. According to his family, he was deeply devoted to his career path, so him not showing up didn't make any sense. That concerned program director made this 911 phone call to request a welfare check at Clint's home.
Cumberland County Emergency Services.
How do I go about getting a welfare check performed on a resident of Cumberland County?
We can put the call in. What's the address?
It is 3265 Butler Nursery Road.
Is that off of 87?
Yep.
And what's your name?
So I'm the program director at Methodist PA program, and one of our students, he's an older student in his 40s. He hasn't shown up all day today. He hasn't been in class at all, and they have class every day of the week. Some of his classmates spoke to him last night. I think around 7 or 8 p.m. was the last time they heard from him by text. But all the numbers that I have for him are going straight to voicemail. He's not responding to email or anything. It's very out of character. He's former military. He lives alone. We know that he lives alone, and his wife is in Virginia, and daughter lives in Florida. So I don't know if anyone's looking for him except us. And I wouldn't normally call, but it's completely out of character.
Okay. Give me just 1 second. And are you at that location now?
I am not.
Okay.
I am in, actually, my faculty called me to let me know he still hasn't shown up. They had class that was supposed to start at 8 this morning, and they're still in class, and no one's heard from him all day.
Okay. I need to get his description. What race is he?
He's white male, maybe 5'10", 5'11". He's got like brown hair. It's not real short, but medium, like not real long. Fit.
How old
Probably
is he?
maybe he's in his late 40s, maybe 46, 47.
And what's his name?
Clinton is his full first name, Bonnell, Bonnell. He goes by Clint.
Does he have any physical, medical, or mental conditions that we need to be aware of?
Not that we are aware of.
Okay. And you may not know the answer to this question too, but I have to ask you: Does anyone have access to weapons?
He was former military, so I would assume,
Okay.
but that would just be an assumption.
All right, I'm gonna go with unknown.
And he's in the program. He was admitted. He was former military. He was active duty up until he came into the program. He may still be in reserves, or active duty may be on hold for him to be in the program. So he's got security clearances. There's no threat or anything that we were aware of. Well, to tell you the truth, why I'm worried is, for one, it's not like him to not show up. This is a high-stakes program, so if they don't come, they let us know ahead of time that they're not going to be there. He definitely wouldn't miss the whole day.
All right, I'll let you go now. An officer will be dispatched as soon as possible. Just call us back if you get new information.
Now, here on Sidebar, we talk a lot about emergencies, but you know what we don't talk about enough is how to prepare so you can face anything with confidence. And I will tell you, falls are one of the leading causes of injury for older Americans. In fact, 1 in 4 experiences one each year, and getting help fast, that can make all the difference. That is where Medical Guardian comes in. And if you think you already know what a medical alert device is like, think again. Medical Guardian continues to innovate, making them sleeker, easier to use, faster than anything you may have seen before. They offer devices that you can wear your way, around your neck, on your wrist, clipped to your belt, so protection fits seamlessly into your daily life. These devices work nationwide with 4G LTE and Wi-Fi, connecting you instantly to 24/7 US-based emergency operators who already know your name, where you are, who to call. They can send emergency services and notify your loved ones, whether it's a fall, a sudden allergic reaction, a car accident, any type of emergency. And with optional fall detection, they can even call for help automatically if you can't press the button yourself. So right now, Medical Guardian is offering our viewers an exclusive 75% off of their top-rated MG Mini and MG Mini Lite. Because being prepared, it's not about fear. It's about living your life without limits, knowing help is always within reach. So visit medicalguardian.com/sidebar75. Use code sidebar75 or DDS75 today to claim your 75% off. So deputies, they go to Clint's home on Butler Nursery Road in Fayetteville. His car, his book bag, his wallet, personal belongings, they were inside. There was no Clint. His wife, 51-year-old Shana Cloud, told deputies she hadn't seen him since the day before, on January 27th, when she said they had worked out together at a nearby Fit for Life gym. According to Shana, the two of them worked out at this gym. They left in separate cars. She said Clint told her he was headed to Methodist University to study for an upcoming exam. But when investigators pressed her further, she claimed she couldn't remember if he ever came back home that night. And according to an application for search warrants that we reviewed in this case, deputies noticed a few other odd things. For example, Clint's car, a Mercedes, that he almost always drove, it was still parked at the house. And despite her husband being missing, Shana refused to file a missing persons report, according to authorities. But let's talk about what happened later that same day, because you see, that is when deputies get a second call. This one from Clint's girlfriend. Yeah, turns out Clint was reportedly having an affair. And what this girlfriend told investigators seemingly contradicts Cloud's account. Because per the application for a search warrant, this girlfriend said Clint told her he met with a divorce attorney on January 27th. She also said that he texted her later that night around 7:53 p.m. saying he had told Shana about the divorce and was going to bed. Cell phone records would later confirm that Clint's phone pinged at his house that evening and into the following morning, January 28th. And after that, his phone apparently went offline suspiciously until January 30th. January 31st, investigators returned to the Bonnell home with a search warrant. And what they found deepened their suspicions. Why? Clint's book bag and laptop appeared to have bullet holes. By February 1st, investigators expanded their search into Virginia, where Shana had owned property. And with the help of Virginia State Police, they seized her car, phone, they searched a rental property. And that same day, Shana admitted to deputies that she had confronted Clint about a note that she believed was from his girlfriend. And then you go to February 25th, right? The chilling discovery of this torso in a pond just a few miles from Clint's home. And going back to this call, the 911 caller's words painted such a grim reality.
Cumberland County Emergency Services, is this an emergency?
Yes and no. It's got a pond on it, and I stopped by to check on the property in the house I got here, because I don't live in it. And it looks like there might be a part of a body floating out in the water. And it looks like that's what it is. I'm not sure, but like it's been there a while, because there's no legs or arms or nothing on it.
Okay. And just to clarify, is this still ongoing? Is that correct?
No, there's nothing going on. It's just out here in the middle of nowhere.
Then we go to March 28th. DNA confirmed the remains belonged to Clint Bonnell, and on that same day, authorities arrested Shana Cloud on suspicion of first-degree murder and concealment of a death. And now, months later, the official autopsy report has been released, and that report that was reviewed by local media seems to confirm some very disturbing details. So to help me break down what this report says, I want to bring on a special guest. We're joined once again by Dr. Naida Rutherford of the Richland County Coroner's Office. I am so happy to have you on, Doctor. Thank you so much for taking the time. When you hear about a case like this, where a dismembered body is found weeks after a disappearance in this particular location, this watery location, what immediately comes to your mind? What are some of the immediate challenges that investigators and coroners face?
The immediate challenge is that you have part of the body. That's the biggest issue. So when I saw the autopsy results revealed, I was like, oh my gosh, you've got a gun, you've got dismemberment, and you have a woman possibly scorned. That's a deadly combination. So not only does this torso have waterlogged and water damage, wet things break down faster, you're going to lose so much evidence just because of the fact that the body's in the water. You have a dismemberment, so you don't know where the head and the limbs are. You're going to have to bring in so many experts to help you. I don't care how great of a medical examiner or coroner you are going to have to find an expert forensic anthropologist to help you break down what happened to this body.
And let's try to talk about it now. So according to the Fayetteville Observer, the autopsy was performed on February 26th at the office of the chief medical examiner in Raleigh. This is just one day after that torso was recovered. And the findings reveal that Clint Bonnell was shot 4 times in the back before his body was dismembered. The pathologist noted 4 entry wounds in his upper and lower back. Each bullet traveled through the body, exiting through the chest. And because the torso had been submerged in water, there was no GSR that was preserved. There was no gunshot residue that was preserved, meaning investigators couldn't determine, right, how far the shooter was from the victim when the bullets were fired. There were no bullets or bullet fragments. Now, there are some really, really horrific details about the dismemberment listed here too. We will get to that. First, Naida, from your perspective as a coroner, the trajectory of these wounds, right? How accurate is that analysis, is that conclusion, and what does that trajectory tell you about a case like this?
So when we're looking at GSWs in a body, we want to be able to look at the path that they go through the body so that we can determine which of the shots may have been the fatal injury. So this is where you're seeing in an autopsy, especially when you look at court photos, how they have the probes into the wound so that you can see exactly the trajectory. But the way this body was found, there are some things missing here, like the internal organs. Some of the internal organs are missing. Why that is, I don't know. Did she cut them out or allegedly cut them out? What happened there? And the fact that those organs are missing, we lose a lot of that trajectory information that we would have gotten had they been in place.
But the trajectory from the back, right? Would that signify that Bonnell didn't know the shots were being fired? Was he in a position of running away? It's different than if someone shot directly in the head or in the chest, right? The positioning of that is very significant. And by the way, the problem is, as I mentioned, you have that loss of GSR. You have that loss of gunshot residue evidence. So what, again, how much of a challenge is that in determining how this shooting took place?
It's going to be difficult to determine the range that the shooter could have been at in order to determine what exactly happened. So was he laying down and she shot him in the back? Was he running away? Was he trying to walk away from her after the maybe a difficult conversation about wanting a divorce? We don't know that. We also don't have a head or limbs to be able to determine if those have gunshots to them. So the medical examiner explicitly stated that with the information that he has in front of him, that the gunshot wounds are the cause of death, right? But then you also have this dismemberment that has occurred. And I know we're going to talk about that in a lot more detail, but the trajectory of the bullets, somewhat important, but in this case, not so important. We know that this person is dead. We know that this is a homicide. Now, just proving which of these things is the fatal injury is going to be important for the medical examiner to include in that report.
And again, before we get to that, the idea of the projectiles not being recovered, not being retrieved, is that a problem? And is that unusual?
It's not unusual, but it is a problem because it can't line up with any potential weapons that they may find at the home. Did he have a gun? Did she have a gun? Was it registered to them? Whose gun was it? If they do find a gun, you don't have the projectiles to be able to compare those striations on the bullet with the muzzle of the gun. So you lose a lot of forensics there. You lose a lot of that ballistic information that you would normally have. And so yes, it does create a problem. But what's not murky here at all is the fact that this is a homicide and that he sustained these GSWs to the back. That tells us a lot about what the shooter may have been doing and what their motives may have been. She's a woman, he's a guy. This guy's a Green Beret. He's had combat training. He's very skilled. So how did she take him down? Did she poison him first and then shoot him in the back later? We don't know until we get more reports back. But I'll tell you what's not alleged. There was planning that took place for this murder. Someone had to know what to do. She has medical training and background. She works in a correctional facility, or at least has had some experience working in a correctional facility. She has access to information. She has talked to someone allegedly about what it was that she was possibly planning to do. And this was not just a spur of the moment thing. She had to have some sort of premeditation in this crime, if she truly committed it, in order to kill him, to have the means to kill him, and then to dismember his body. She didn't just dismember him and left him at the house. She had to transport this body. So at any point in this process, she could have called authorities. She could have let them know, but she didn't do any of those things. And that's the part that her defense is going to have to talk about.
And allegedly, right? I mean,
Allegedly.
she's been charged with this. She's entitled to a defense, but it is interesting, to say the least, based on what we talked about before in the story. Now, according to the report, this is what's so eerie, right? The remains consisted only of this torso. So Bonnell's head, arms, legs, they're all missing. The autopsy states that a, quote, sharp tool, maybe even a mechanical saw, was used in the dismemberment. In addition to the missing limbs, by the way, the report notes a large 10-inch gash across the abdomen, and as Dr. Rutherford said, several organs, the stomach, the kidneys, gone. So whether they were removed during the dismemberment process or they were lost during decomposition, it remains unclear. And despite the condition of the body, the medical examiner was clear about this, that Clint Bonnell's cause of death was multiple gunshot wounds. The manner of death was homicide. The report concludes that while additional injuries may have been present but obscured by decomposition and dismemberment, the gunshot wounds alone were independently fatal. First of all, let's start there. How do they know that? How do they know it's the gunshot wounds that caused the death? I mean, okay, from a human point of view, this is so macabre to say, but if you're talking about organs being removed, I hope that the cause of death was gunshot wounds as opposed to someone feeling the dismemberment. Again, just putting that aside. But how do they know independently those were fatal, given there's a lot they don't know?
Because the heart wasn't removed and the lungs weren't removed. And so if those gunshots hit those two areas, then more than likely a person is going to bleed out without medical care. So quick, sudden, that's what you hope for. And again, like you said, scary and weird and disgusting to think about, but we hope he didn't feel any of those things. I hope it was a sudden death.
Two things. Why would someone want to... Okay, let's back up for a second. How tough is it for someone to actually dismember a body? A, physically, how tough is it for someone to do? And B, emotionally and mentally, to dismember somebody, allegedly somebody you knew, somebody you were in love with? Talk to me about that.
So when I first saw this case, what I thought was this person had to be enraged or they had help. I don't rule out, her lawyer says she's innocent. And what I thought about that was, well, if she's innocent, now is the time to start snitching and singing like a canary, because if someone else helps you do this, or you got this idea that maybe you didn't want him around and you enlisted the help of someone else, you need to start telling the story. But if she did this alone, she would have had to uh, get him to a point where he was no longer able to move. She would have had to debilitate him in some way, either through the gunshot wounds or through poisoning, shoot him, and then dismember him. I don't know if you've ever tried to, and this is horrible to say, but I don't know if you've ever tried to like cut up a whole chicken. It can be very difficult if you don't know what you're doing. She's a nurse. She has medical training. She doesn't need to Google anything. She literally has a plethora of knowledge already in front of her and at her fingertips, simply by asking questions to physicians, to scientific journals. She could literally look this up in a professional capacity and no one would think anything was weird about it because she's in the healthcare field. It is very difficult, though, to cut up a human body, the head, not so much, but the arms and the legs, to get through those joints, that is a difficult process. How did she do this? And she would have had to have used some sort of mechanical or power assisted device, because think about a handsaw and the back and forth, just the physicality of that. Yes, she may have worked out. Yes, she may have been in tip top condition and shape, but a normal average person cannot sit there and saw someone up. She would have to either have had assistance, either from a power assisted saw device or someone helping her.
And this 10-inch gash across the abdomen, what do you make of an injury like that? How do you determine whether it happened before Bonnell died, during dismemberment, later during decomposition? Did that stand out to you?
It does, because the organs were removed. So I would want to know, was there any animal activity near that area that could have caused this gash? We lose so much information by that body being in the water and the state of decomposition that it was in. So in a fresher death, we could see certain patterns. We could see serrated edges. We could see how the wound, may have been created. But in a case like this, where you possibly have animal activity, something could have clawed at the abdomen and possibly fed on the organs. We just don't know. Again, the medical examiner's report, the detailed report, is going to tell us so much. Because even though the body was decomposed, we should be able to see if something was like surgically cut out, like the anatomical knowledge that you would have to be able to remove those organs, versus an animal eating it at something that they think is just, like dead in the water. But this is a disgusting case, honestly, to me. Like the amount of emotion that you have to cut up someone that you were in love with, that you were married to for 16 years. Oh, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, what they say.
That's what the prosecutors will say. From the defense perspective, and this is what something, I mean, you've seen this countless times. It's not outside the realm of possibility the defense, if this goes to trial, will call their own expert to, provide a different conclusion about what happened here. If you don't have these limbs, if you don't have the organs, what are some arguments that a defense forensic pathologist could make regarding cause and manner of death? What are some areas they could explore? Because if you don't have these other components, what do you imagine the counter argument could be regarding what happened to him, or who did this?
There's no counter argument as to whether or not this is a homicide. And there's no counter argument as to how the injuries occurred. So I don't care who they bring in. Any forensic anthropologist worth their education and their salt is going to tell you that this dismemberment occurred using some sort of a sharp force trauma. to me, the defense is going to have to go after her emotional state, or whether or not she had an accomplice, or just stick with the defense that she just didn't do it herself. But I don't think you can argue the wounds, and I don't think that you can argue the mechanism by which he died. They're going to have to go after emotion. To me, you can't argue with the facts of the case. The facts are he was shot.
I guess the question is, if they never find these other parts of his body, can they still explain what happened and get a successful prosecution?
Absolutely. See, what they're going to do is they're going to do something called a tool mark analysis, and they're going to look at the bones that are left, because she didn't just cut these bones clean. There are going to be marks. There are going to be certain cuts that are in there. There are going to be things called false starts, which are like these kind of superficial, non-penetrating cuts to the bone. Again, if you have never done this before, this is not an easy thing to do. Let's say she used a chainsaw. They have all sorts of tools and analysis that they can do to determine what type of device that she used. There are several classes of saws. And again, she did not use a manual saw to do this. She would have had to have something like a mechanical power assisted device in order to do this. And the prosecution and the defense are going to find their own forensic anthropologist to break down this tool mark analysis, to put a report together and say, how could this have happened? Because here's the thing, there's no question as to whether or not he was killed. The only question here is who did it. They cannot argue the forensics of this case very well. They're going to have to go after her or who they think it could be.
And I feel so bad for his family and friends who have to hear these details, right? They have to now experience what happened here. And if this goes to trial, they sit in that courtroom, a jury has to see these graphic images. It's just a really disturbing and disgusting case on a lot of different levels. Now, going back to Cloud, by the way, who turned 51 since her arrest, she's charged with first-degree murder, concealment of a body. She remains in the Cumberland County Detention Center without bail, and we will keep a very careful eye on what happens next. Dr. Naida Rutherford, thank you so much for taking the time. Always appreciate it.
I thank you so much.
And that is all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. You can follow me on X or Instagram. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll see you next time.